YouTube. This is Shadowfox4562 with
Parker Lad 88.
once again, and we're doing a deck profile up.
Noble Knights,
Alright,
aka TCG Boojins. Alright, so first up we have the boss monster, Noble Knight Medrot. His effect is whenever he's the only Noble Knight on the field, you can special summon one Noble Knight monster from your deck. You have to equip them with the Noble Arms. All the Noble Knights, or at least most of them, have the pretext that they are normal monsters when they are face up on the field, and then when they are equipped with Noble Arms, they become dark and they increase level by 1, so they become 5s. So this is the main guy that most people say. To me, he's more like, if you had the equivalent to something, probably like Mikazuchi. He is the play facilitator, but this next guy is probably, I think, the most important. Was 3 copies of boards. I think this guy is truly the most important one. So what he does is whenever he's equipped with the Noble Arms, he does become dark, just like Medrot does. His level increases by 1. And then he also has the ability where whenever he's equipped with the Noble Arms, you can select 3 Noble Arms randomly from your deck, and then your opponent chooses one of them. And then the rest of them go to the graveyard, so it's like a power tool that way. Whenever you don't have Medrot, this is the guy you want. So, and he facilitates everything. He allows you to get your setup for your kings and stuff like that. So I definitely think he's the better of the 2 of them. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Gwaine. Gwaine says that you can special summon him if you control a light normal monster. So he's basically your Exceed play facilitator. Allows you to go for the king and then whatever other rank 4 Exceeds you want to go for. And he's a 19 beater, so whenever you have to summon him, he's pretty good. You generally don't want to, but, you know, desperate times sometimes. And then one card that I thought that I wouldn't like as much, but the more I play him, the more I like him. Noble Knight Brothers. Noble Knight Brothers, his effect is whenever he's normal summoned, you can special summon up to 2 other Noble Knights from your hand. Probably not the effect that you use that often, but his other effect, which is pretty good. He's a Daigusto Emerald. You take 3 Noble Knight or Noble Arms cards from your graveyard, shuffle them back into your deck, and draw 1. A lot of people, I don't think, really like him just because he can't attack unless he controls 3 and he has 2400 defense. And the fact that he has 1200 attack is like, why not just let him attack? But honestly, if you use him for what he's supposed to, which is basically just sitting on the field in defense with that 2400 ass, and just letting him to allow you to accumulate hand advantage late game, he's pretty darn good. And the reason why I run 2 copies of, I will explain later as well. And then, following up that, I got 2 copies of Galchavad. Galchavad is a warrior returning alive. Just like Boars and Medrot, he's a normal Noble Knight without the Noble Arms. When he does get the Noble Arms, then he becomes a warrior returning alive. And the pretty cool thing about him and about Medrot is you don't have to specifically destroy the one that's attached to them. You can really destroy any of the other Noble Arms that are on the field. So if you have, like, KFK, King of Noble Knights, KFK, or Essen KFK, Sacred Artur, I guess, you can destroy any of those other ones too. So it's pretty cool. So that ends all the Noble Knights. Next we're moving into other monsters. Whoop. We got 2 copies of Gwendy. This card. This card. So what this card does is you can equip it as a Noble Arms if it's in your hand, or you can equip it from the grave, which is really important because it essentially turns all your Noble Knights into a top deck. And allows them to facilitate all their effects and stuff like that. Her light effect, when she's equipped to a light Noble Knight, they can take an extra destruction by card effect. You just send her to the graveyard to negate that destruction. And when she's a dark, she becomes a Catastor, which is probably her better effect. Actually, it's a really good effect. It's actually better than Catastor because if a monster's face down, you can just outright destroy it. It doesn't have to flip up or anything like that. So, this card. Many, many good things. So, here's probably the unconventional part. I run 2 copies of Recover for my tuner. Because Ignoble Knight, High Launcelin, he is a good card, and I love summoning that card whenever I get a chance. I just needed a way to do it, because Lay of the Lake, everyone knows, is not that great. So, this card allows me to do that. His effect is kind of irrelevant, but his other effect is you can special summon from the graveyard by paying 2,000 life points if your opponent has 5 more cards in their extra deck than you do. So, and then, of course, we're running 1 copy of Honest, because Honest is Honest. So that pretty much rounds up the monster count right there. I think it's 17, 18, something like that. Moving on to the Noble Arms. We got 2 copies of Excalibur. Excalibur says you can't target me, your opponent specifically. You can target your own Noble Knights. Unlike the other Noble Arms, you can equip as many of these to a Noble Knight as you want, but when they die, they fall off. It also has the ability to Chaos Exceed Exchange if it's in the graveyard. except for the turn it was sent to the graveyard. You can target one of your normal Knight Exceeds and change it up or change it down to whichever version you don't have. So it's pretty handy. I wish I could actually run this at 3, but 2 works out for me right now. Next up, we have 2 Destiny. Prevent your Noble Knight monsters from being destroyed by Battle of Card Effect one time, so I gotta kill it twice. These 2 together, best Noble Arms. I have 1 copy of Arf Tier. Say it with me, Arf Tier. Or just Dark Sword, Arf, whatever you prefer.
Tier.
Thank you. Thank you, Neo Dark Guy. I appreciate that. So what this thing does, this lets you pop any set. You decrease your monster's attack points by 500, and if you do, you pop the set. You can pop set monsters, you can pop sped spells and traps, and because I'm not running MST in this deck, this card really helps out a lot. I think it's actually really underutilized in Noble Knights, but I like it. Next, we're playing Noble Arms of Gallatin, i.e. Noble Knight Big Sword. So a lot of people actually don't like this card because if you equip it to SNKFK, he becomes progressively weaker. But here's my theory about this card. By the time your SNKFK gets weak enough to the point where it can be destroyed, you probably want it to be destroyed, because then you can just remake another one, or you can go and make the rank 4, which I think is actually better. So, run it at 1, it's really good at getting over those big monsters where it's just like, crap, how'd I get over this monster? I know, Big Sword! So, Big Sword. 1 copy of Caliburn. A lot of people probably argue this is the next best Noble Arms next to Destiny and Excalibur. What it does is it gives your Noble Knight extra 500 attack points, and then once per turn...
7 minutes.
Okay. Okay. And then once per turn, you can gain 100 life points. It's really good at helping you queue with like extra life points. Then, of course, Roto with 2 lets you search out whatever Noble Knight you want. And then I run 2 copies of E-Telly. This is how I actually get out my tuner. It allows me to get into my go into my synchro plays a lot easier, because, like I said before, High Lancelin, he's a really good option to go into if you can, and this plus the recover has definitely let me do it. So I've tried it out so far, and I really like it. Next up, we got Duality for consistency reasons. 2 copies of Forbidden Lands. As a Noble Knight player, you always want your summons to go off, because Noble Knights are kind of reliant. They're very reliant on their normal summon, so this helps that happen. Then the 1 copy of Soul Charge. I really feel like only 1 is necessary.
Because you want to get back that 1 monster, right?
Right, pretty much. It says, hey, pay 1,000 life points for your win condition, or you can pay 2,000 and do some other neat things, like you can get back a Galchavad to get a Gawain, you can get back Brothers 2 to get your extra draw and then overlay, so 1 Soul Charge. And then next up we have the traps, pretty simple. 2 Breakthrough Skill, because they're Breakthrough Skill, and then I also run Call of the Haunted. Oop, that's not a Call of the Haunted. Darn, where's my other call? Whatever, I run 2 Call of the Haunted. Because when I was testing Noble Knights after Roto got back to 2, one thing I realized is once you get past the consistency issues, you realize that Noble Knights are really reliant on their normal summon, and if things go awry, Call of the Haunted lets you get back those Noble Knights. So, and then 1 copy of Solemn because it's Solemn, and then also for consistency reasons, we're running 2 copies of Upstart Goblin.
Okay.
Moving on to the extra deck, we got 2 Sacred King Artorigus, SNKFK. This is going to be the guy you're going into most. He's not my favorite. I personally like the regular one better because of the spell and trap control, but this guy's pretty good too. You can pop any monster you want to, and when he dies, you get back a Noble Knight. It's pretty good. 2 copies of KFK, King Artorigus. This is the guy I really wish I could go into more. I mean, you get to destroy back row for your opponent and for yourself as well. It's a high utility card. You can destroy your own back row to do Noble Knight stuff, get more life points, all that fun stuff. So, 2 of him. 1 Gaia Charger because we play 5s. 1 Volcasaurus because he's Volcasaurus. Then we've got Heroic Champion Excalibur and Blade Armor Ninja because these are your facilitators of your OTK. When you have Medrot and a Gawain, you can do this innate thing where you bring back a Galchavad, which lets you go for the OTK with these 2. 1 Starleech because it's Starleech. 101. 101 can get you out of a lot of situations if you're in a bad spot. Rhapsody Berserk. It's a defense monster that allows you to soul release. And then you can also equip it to your Noble Knight to make it stronger. Calgar got Cowboy because it's Game Stealer. And then I run 2 copies of High Lancelin because, well, I can. With the fact that I'm running 2 Recovers and 2 E-Tellys, I can go from a lot more consistently, so I can bring them out easier. And then also, because our tuner is just a generic tuner, it lets me play other 5s like Armades, which really helps out against stuff where I really just need to get around back row or who have effects during the battle phase that I can't get around. So that's pretty much the main deck. That's pretty much everything for Noble Knights. And then I also have a side deck as well. I got 2 copies of Soul Release, and there are a lot of things out there that are reliant on the graveyard. A lot of this is mostly just like Lightsworn hate, but this works against everything coming out in the future too, for Tellarknights, Shaddolls, and so on and so forth. 2 Kaiser Coliseum. I don't like maining Kaiser Coliseum, even though you see a lot of competitive builds maining Kaiser Coliseum, because I don't like being restricted to the amount of monsters I can have on the field just because I don't want my opponent to have a bunch of monsters on the field or whatever. I'd rather just side it once I figure out what I'm playing and just be free to put as many monsters on the field as I want to. Granted, most of the time I'm only going for 1, but even so, I just like it better this way. We got 2 copies of Scapegoat, because Creature Swap is our worst enemy. 1 copy of D-Fissure. One thing I definitely love about Noble Knights is their versatility, I think, anyway, as far as the side deck, and one of those things being that I can run D-Fissure. Works great against Lightsworns, works great against Shaddolls, works great against Boojins. D-Fissure. I wish this was back at 2. 2 Dust Tornado. I probably side this in every deck that I play, because sometimes the best siding cards are, you know, side deck hate cards, so Dust Tornado. 2 Vanity's Emptiness. Yeah.
It's emptiness.
It's emptiness.
That's all I have to say. Is emptiness.
Yeah, exactly. 2 copies of Royal Decree. I tried maining Royal Decree for a while, and it worked out pretty well for me. I probably could go back to maining it, but I just kind of like my trap lineup that I have right now. And against those really back row reliant heavy decks, like Hat, for instance, it's pretty good. 2 Rivalry, because most things are warriors, and then the last thing we have is Soul Drain. Now, I realize that Soul Drain can actually prevent a lot of your Gwendy plays, but I would only want to side this in instances in which Soul Drain would be a lot worse for my opponent than it would be for me. So, I think it's actually a 16-card extra deck. I just can't remember what I took out. And that's pretty much it.
So, what are your best and worst matchups, in your opinion?
Well, my best and... Noble Knights don't actually have a lot of specifically good matchups. A lot of it, they're just neutral matchups, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably say something like Girgia. The reason being that any deck that relies a lot on setting, I can just use cards like Arc Feudatory, or I can use SNKOK just to blow it up before they can start plussing. Other than matchups like that, a lot of them are pretty neutral. A lot of it just kind of stacks up to what Noble Knights feel like doing at the time, because everybody knows that Noble Knights are not the most consistent deck out there. So that's probably the best matchup, I would say, would probably be Girgia. Everything else is pretty neutral. It just feels like whatever the deck just wants to do at that time. If it feels like being consistent, then we're in there. But if not, then...
So what's your worst matchup?
Worst matchup, anything that doesn't target. So things like Artifacts can actually be a pretty bad matchup, even though I have Destiny. Madolche is a horrible matchup. Prophecy, horrible matchup.
Arbiter and Trivial?
Sylvan's, horrible matchup. Yeah, there's a list, but in terms of the stuff that's actually out right now, those are the main ones.
I got you.
Yeah.
Alright, thanks.
Yep, no problem.
Shadow Fox, signing out, guys.